Blink 182 and MXPX were absolutely peers.
Hmm.
And up to this point, I had always had them kind of, I don't know what the word would be, in association with MXPX. And so when I
Right.
was when I was sitting down to do this, I was like, oh, Poconacha came out around the same time that Cheshire Cat did.
Hmm.
And so I started listening to it and I thought, oh, and it kind of mimics the sound of Cheshire Cat. Okay, that's it, man. That's all it mimics because it is 100 times better than Cheshire Cat. Doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review Podcast. Hanging out with Rob today. I'm excited to talk about MXPX, man. This is a band that I did a live stream on yesterday to kind of like refamiliarize myself with some of the songs I hadn't heard in a while. And I've actually got quite a bit to say about their music, man. So we kind of just ran inside from hanging out with my mom and sat down and logged in. So what's up, Rob? How's your day going, bud?
Pretty good. You know, my summer is winding down. If you can tell from my voice, I've been very drunk in public and punk in public, both at the same time at the same place. So I sound like crap.
That's
so
awesome.
you know, good times. We're in the middle.
Hell
of
yeah,
it.
that's rad, dude. Yeah, no effects thing, man. Their tour is kind of, I'd say, like on this on a downside, right?
Yeah, there's not that many shows left. This is
Crazy, dude.
it's
Crazy.
this fall. I want to say it's November or September. I can't the exact date where they are done.
Less
so this
than
is,
6 months. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
this
4 months.
is. There was a lot of songs I felt like that I saw them play that, wow, that's probably the last time they're ever going to play that song or that song. And then I should just say, let me put it out there. It was a unique experience. I was happy. I had 2 days of no effects to say goodbye to no effects. I was going to have my serious decline day, the deep cut day, and then they were going to do like a greatest hits set the day before. Well, what happened is the weather did not cooperate.
Oh
So
shit.
it was rainy in Denver. It was the Denver stop I was at the entire day, but it was still cooperating right until after the band we're going to talk about a little later on, MXPX's set. MXPX was the co-headliner basically of day one.
Okay.
After their set, which you could tell they're coordinating with the event crew and all that, you see the tarps coming out. And I think their set might have been cut slightly short. And you see everything going up. You get the signal, hey, we're in a rain delay, we're in a weather delay. No big deal. But you know, you had seen the forecast. You knew it, the potential was there.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they get on the speaker. A severe thunderstorm in the area. Please seek shelter. Kind of thing. Yeah. So
It's ass, bro.
yeah. So luckily, I was in the like the VIP section, had a lot of tents just to cover from rain. So he spent about a good hour and a half just in the middle of this legit storm. The lightning wasn't close, but it was a ton of water, and everyone about like this for about an hour. Go on Instagram, TikTok. I've seen some videos of it. It looks scarier than it actually was. Like it looks gnarly, but it was you're just basically everyone at a punk festival in a few tents, huddled in to sort of wait out the weather. I will say shout out to whoever left the beer unattended in the beer tents, because about every 30 minutes or so, somebody would run over with a 30 pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon, because that was the cheap beer that was on hand. So everyone had to scatter, like all the merch tents, everyone, including the concessions. And for whatever reason, if they did it on purpose or whatever, or we stole it, sorry, there was a lot of beer they left out there. So in the middle of everyone huddled up, we all had warm beer because it was not refrigerated.
Oh.
But it was, kind of the ambiance of what we were doing. The storm lets up, everyone comes out, they're setting back up, and then they tear down again. And, there's confusion, all this. And we finally get word from one of their stage managers that the weather's bad. They can't play tonight. The set is canceled. However, if you had a ticket for night one, it's fully available for night two. No Effects was going to play 2 sets on the second day, but the weather was still bad day 2. So the times were flexible. So lesser bands made like everything was in flux. Like you didn't know what was going to happen. All you knew is be there on Sunday. Even if you didn't have a ticket for Sunday, if you had one on Saturday, your ticket was good on Sunday. So
that's awesome.
It was. And even the people who there was people who were saying like, hey man, I just came for today. And they were, the NoFX people were handing out like the number to call to get like a full refund, on their ticket and this and that. So despite the circumstances, they were taking care of
Yeah.
people. And then so the next day we get a notification at 3:00, which is actually when the free beer section of the thing, the formal free beer section ends. NoFX was going to do what was essentially their Saturday night set, which was like that greatest hits set.
Okay.
And then like they had to, so they moved it around where Lagwagon and Suicidal played in between, played right after them, and TSOL. So the other three bands that people were really there to see that day. And then NoFX came back out at 7, and then their originally planned set for the day, their decline set with some of the other deep cuts and some of their greatest hits. It was both sets were slightly shorter than what they would have done, but it was like 70 or some songs in one day.
Yeah, that's a lot of NoFX.
And then the bands that were gonna be sacrificed if the weather didn't cooperate was gonna be Teenage Bottle Rocket and Comeback Kid.
Oh, I love both of those bands so much.
Those are the bands that like basically. The way it was being presented, it's like they did everything they can to clear the air for Suicidal, Lagwagon, TSOL, the two NoFX sets, and those other two bands kind of had, it was like the chances they took. So of course, Mike is talking shit on those two bands the whole time about how they're gonna get screwed and all this. It's kind of a fun thing. Weather cooperates though. We get rain during NoFX's set, which was awesome. Like watching the decline in rain, especially warm rain that wasn't
Honestly,
like cold.
It's kind of dope.
It was a really cool experience, and then. Most of the crowd leaves, but a pretty sizable, fairly lubricated and really there, to have fun crowd stays for Teenage Bottle Rocket. They put out a killer set, and then
love Teenage Bottle Rocket.
Comeback Kid closes the night, which the crowd is still there. And again, if you were there at that point, you were just there to have a good time.
I would have been one of them late dudes. I'd have been there all day.
Yeah, and so we were at the VIP section. It's kind of cool. You're like towards the front, but you're not like really in the pit. You're kind of like observant of the pit. So for Comeback Kid, I thought, you know what? It's been all weekend. I got all the energy I got left. I went in the big, circle pit that Comeback Kid had. Ended up getting thrown into the rail, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot how comfortable this spot is. So for about half a Comeback Kid set, I'm there in the rail, with the security high-fiving them, catching the crowd surfers.
Dude,
and
awesome.
I had a really fun time to end like a situation that could have been really, really bad or a real bummer turned into actually be kind of funner. So it ended up being that if you think about it, MXPX kind of headlined night 1, and then we had all that like the double NoFX bill on night 2 with a nice little encore with Comeback Kid and Teenage Bottle Rocket. So
I'm gonna piss off our entire audience, but I would rather see Teenage Bottle Rocket and Comeback Kid than Lagwagon, TSOL, and Suicidal Tendencies by about 70 times, dude. I don't care about those three bands at all. I like TSOL. I like Lagwagon. I don't really have an issue with Suicidal Tendencies, but I don't really listen to them. Yeah. But I love Teenage Bottle Rocket. If anybody's watched this channel for more than a month knows that. And then Comeback Kid, I've been a fan of them for 20 years. But yeah, it's just personal preferences. I don't have an issue with the other bands. I just really love Comeback Kid, and Teenage Bottle Rocket is so good, bro. I want those dudes on my show so bad, bro. I want to talk to those guys. I just want to talk to them, man. They're fun dudes, and I just want to talk to them.
Their set was really fun, especially after the. It was a very like emotional NoFX set. You ended with the decline. You know what I mean? So Teenage Bottle Rocket was kind of a nice palate cleanser. I will say too, day 1. Some of the highlights would be day 2 as well. Like Get Dead was pretty awesome, and they really got the crowd into it. But then day 1, Co-Defendants was a band that was people. They were playing right before someone cared about. So I might have been right before Face to Face or one of them that people really wanted to see. So people weren't necessarily there to see Co-Defendants. They were just sort of bunching up to see them. And people were really into. People were asking, and they had a lot of street teamers that were going around passing out the little Co-Defendant stuff during their set. So they definitely made some fans. And then one last thing,
man, they're a great band.
They are. I got to meet my guy Jared Gaines, the Flash artist I'm always telling you about, who designed the tattoo I have. I got to have a little quick conversation with him. He took a picture of the tattoo, and it was cool because it was a lot of the people you always see, like the Punk Rock Save Live people, all the little booths. You know what I mean? And shout out to a lot of those guys. A lot of them were able to save a lot of their merch because a lot of them were offering where like there was like a little bookstore. They would hold your book or hold your vinyl till the end of the night. I hope all that stuff was intact because that stuff got like flooded. So, but
that's where I bought a bunch of records from them.
Yeah, I didn't think it's Brewha Productions is the one that actually runs the Punk and Drublic. Like them with NoFX though, pretty first class like event considering all the circuit. I've been to much worse with much smaller shows and much smaller venues. You know what I mean?
Right.
So shout out to them. A
Did
plus
you
all the
get
way
to
around.
see Smelvis record? Not Smelvis.
The Left Alone dude.
Yeah, was that dude's records there? Oh
No,
wait, no, because they were playing in Houston on Monday, so he couldn't have been there.
no, yeah.
Let's
There
Alone played
was
Houston this Monday.
there was a little less of the like generic stuff there. Everything that was there was a little more branded. Like
Okay.
there was this dude called Minor Threads,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
which had his. So it was a lot more like that stuff. There wasn't as much
Okay.
as when I saw Elvis before. It's where I like it was Hellcat stuff, so it was just kind of generic punk. The only stuff that
Right.
generic punk stuff was the Fat Tent itself, which had a lot of like that line was ridiculous, but a lot of like
Gotcha.
$7, $13 vinyls, like good
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
But
But
this was the extent of the
more
yeah.
wallet friendly.
Right, and this is the extent of the merch I got. Of course, was these great NoFX hats that
That
were
hat's
going around,
dope.
and then that you can't see on the back, but this is the linoleum shirt. It's got a can on the back. It says
I knew what that
linoleum,
one was. I saw that one.
guaranteed to
when I
get
was
stuck in your head. So I thought I had to get that one.
I bought a couple different shirts, but the one I have is a tattoo Mike's got. But real quick before we move on to MXPX, man, have you been hearing about the drama with the Punk Rock Museum, NoFX, and Rancid and Suicidal Tendencies?
No. I've been
Yeah,
out of the loop. What happened?
they're apparently getting canceled, quote unquote, because they had some dealings with Dixon Flannel. You know who Dixon Clothing is?
Oh, I saw the responses. Okay, now I have the context to what this was about. Okay, now
Yeah,
I got you.
because Rancid, who probably had nothing to do with it other than going, sure, we'll do a shirt with these guys, are now responsible for some stuff that this dude who owns this business, who doesn't speak for all of his employees, mind you. I'm so sick of this stuff, dude. I'm just so sick of it. Like, if you don't want to buy Dixon clothing, I get that. I understand that. But like,
Yeah.
to say you're going to cancel or like you want to not have anything to do with the Punk Rock Museum or NoFX or Rancid because this just popped off, dude. Give them a chance to respond. Rancid's on tour. NoFX is on tour. Like, it's not like they can just hear something and then make a statement based on some hearsay. They have to do their due diligence, because if they didn't and they were wrong, you guys would roast them for that. Like, just give them a little bit of time. Now, if I see a new Rancid shirt in the next 6 months come up on there, I will be wondering why. But like right now, like, good grief, dude. So I'm so sick of this, man. I'm so sick of it. I don't personally buy from Dixon, and I definitely won't now. But you can't expect these people to vet every single person that works at a company or owns a company to the degree that you actually know them personally. That's just not a reasonable expectation. And I'm so tired of these whiny ass people. And it was somebody from Groovy Ghoulies that, like, I guess they went, I don't know, they went on to like Dixon for something and they saw a fuck Antifa shirt. Antifa, how do you say that word? Antifa, whatever. And they got all pissed off about it and found out that he made some shirts for NoFX and then made some shirts for the Punk Rock Museum or something. And I'm like, okay, have you never had stickers made by Sticker Mule? I have, and I won't now, but I have in the past. Like, dude, sometimes you get business with people and you find out that they're shitheads and you got to move on from it. But like, give them a chance to move on. Like, I don't know, this like snap judgment thing is so crazy to me.
Yeah, all a little easier to do just from the comfort of your phone, right?
Right, that you got from a sweatshop in China. Like, fuck off, man.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, stop talking shit from your iPhone and maybe I'll listen to you. Anyways, stupid. Let's talk about some fun stuff, dude.
All right.
All right. So back in like 1995 probably about 95, I'm getting into punk rock. I don't know much about it. I know I'm going to go see Rancid play because my brother set me up with tickets to go see Lollapalooza. So I knew I was going to see Rancid. I didn't really know much about them. I was more or less going to see Metallica. And I started listening to punk rock music, right? And it was very sparse. I think probably about 96 is probably when I started buying punk rock music. I was 14. I was getting birthday money and stuff. And, money from cutting the lawn and things like that. And I remember very distinctly owning, I think, like 4 CDs pretty early on, maybe probably five early on. I had Rancid and Out Come the Wolves. I had Let's Go. I had NoFX, I Heard They Suck Live. I had NoFX, Punk in Drublic. But I also bought MXPX, Life in General. So that album has been with me for a very, very long time. And I don't know when it came out. I think it came out in 95, but I could be wrong.
I think so. That sounds right.
So there's a reason why I like the kind of fast skater punk stuff that I like. That Life in General, while they have plenty of like slower tempo songs, it's got a lot of no effects in it. It's got a lot of very fast melodic hardcore stuff in it, which I don't particularly like that term, but people know what I mean when I say it. So yeah, my only point is that we're going to talk about MXPX for a little while. I have a very long list of songs that are good by them. It could have been much longer. I tried to whittle it down. I just didn't have the time. I'll try to go off memory and give you guys like my favorite ones by them, because there's probably like 10 or 12 that I just absolutely love, but there's like 24 that I really enjoy quite a bit to put on my own personal playlist.
November '96, by the way, on Life in General. So it's actually a year later than I had anticipated as well.
Oh, okay. So I guess it was like 97 that I bought it then, because it was after it had been out for a little while when I bought it.
So it fits right in that mid '90s soup of like early Blink. You could think of them as like peers of like Blink before Blink was big.
Actually, I want to talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
So Blink 182 and MXPX were absolutely peers.
Mm-hmm.
And up to this point, I had always had them kind of, I don't know what the word would be, in association with MXPX. And so when I was sitting down to do this, I was like, oh, Poconacha came out around the same time that Cheshire Cat did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started listening to it, and I thought, oh, and it kind of mimics the sound of Cheshire Cat. Okay, that's it, man. That's all it mimics, because it is 100 times better than Cheshire Cat. Musically, lyrically, the recording quality is pretty similar. But like, I didn't realize. I don't know that I've ever heard Poconacha, to be honest with you. I didn't realize how freaking good that record is. Like, this musically, the recording is whatever. You can like it or you can not like it. I personally enjoyed it just fine. But it was funny because I really was going to do a whole video on like comparing those albums and being like, if you like this, then you might like this. I think that Poconacha would overshadow Cheshire Cat. Now, ultimately, Blink 182 had like the better production, better catchy songs, whenever they did like Dude Ranch or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you had looked at them from when they began, you might have been able to make a case for MXPX being like the wiser choice to back. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think about that a lot with bands like MXPX, which are pop punk bands that didn't necessarily become like platinum artists the way that guys like Blink is, and what is the difference? And really, like, if I'm a record label guy, I feel like in 1995, I probably would rather sign MXPX like over Blink at the time, just because MXPX would have been better like musically. At the
Isn't
time,
that wild?
They would have been a little bit better writing their own songs. Their stuff then more mimicked what was part of mainstream rock and radio at the time. Blink was part of changing that, and Blink stuff ended up sounding a lot more like what the pop music was at the time. And I think that's ultimately probably why Blink ended up sort of surpassing them, or one of the reasons in there. But definitely, because think about it, if you're coming off of like Green Day and The Offspring, and you're just a label guy in California. There's a lot of, I think what MXPX is giving to you feels very, very much like something you would rather be in business with. Now, the difference might have been too in the live response to the bands, whereas MXPX, even as a very youthful band, was still very much a band that outcast punk rockers would in whatever scene that they were in would kind of get into. Where Blink always had like a bigger mass appeal, I think, even at their smaller level. Like, there's always the stories of like everyone at the merch tents who were working there, so just wanting to see Blink, and Blink had a certain magnetism to them, a certain star quality that maybe specifically MXPX did or didn't have. But there's not to say that maybe put in those circumstances or if they switched cities or something, they wouldn't. I think I would rather listen to generally a MXPX song than a Blink 182 song if I'm putting the two bands even at the peak of their powers, which I think they went in different directions, and they're both great legendary bands. I think Mike is a better songwriter than anyone in Blink, and that's not a shade on anyone of those guys. I just think Mike's a really good songwriter. Yeah.
His lyrics I like his lyrics because they're almost cheesy. They're like straight and direct and to the point, but I relate to that, and I also kind of write like that. But if I was going to say who I thought was just an overall better songwriter, I think I would lean towards Blink as songwriters, but as far as the strength and catalog, I would say MXPX. I think Blink has they have the two higher peak albums with Dude Ranch and Enema, but I think overall, just the quality of music, I think that MXPX brought more quality music to the table on a more regular basis than Blink-182 did. And I don't mean that, again, like you said, I'm not throwing shade. I'm just, coming from my perspective, I would say that on a mass appeal, people probably would disagree with that. But speaking from like punk rock perspective, MXPX always had fast songs, always had good production, always had solid lyrics, always had solid live show. I can't say that for Blink.
Right.
Their live shows have been pretty bad a lot of times. A lot of their albums are very hit or miss, even with their fans. And I don't hear that with with MXPX fans very often. I hear a lot of praise. Their later albums are just as beloved as their early stuff. I think that Polka Notch's an album that I wish I had more time with. I'm going to spend some time with it here in the near future. I'm surprised I never listened to it. I don't know why. I really don't. I think I kind of got into them and then got out of them kind of quick, honestly.
Yeah, their early catalog though was a little hard back in the day to have it all in one place though too. That's also, I think, part of it. Because I had a lot of the songs that are from early on. Like I can't tell you what album they came off of, but I remember having some comps and some collections and anthologies that other labels released later with them from those early days. So I think that gets a little bit muddled. Where a band like Blink has a much cleaner like early discography that you can look at.
I think they did it the opposite of Blink, because Blink had Buddha, which was it was awful, and then the Cheshire Cat came out. It was like a better version of Buddha. With MXPX, they had Polka Notcha come out, and then they had Teenage Politics, which is a worse version of Polka Notcha. And I heard Teenage Politics, and I think that's why I never went back and listened to Polka Notcha, because I didn't care for Teenage Politics very much. It wasn't that the songwriting was bad; it was a recording. It was a studio issue. And I think those songs are probably older than the songs on Polka Notcha. They might be like different, rougher recordings, demo versions and stuff. So I think they just had a flip flop thing with Blink. And so with Blink, I liked their old stuff as far as I knew. I just didn't go all the way back. But MXPX, I didn't know that I was going to like their earliest album based on the fact I just didn't go listen to it. But I also listened to Life in General, and then I got slowly going the way of the Buffalo. I didn't even really care for it much, and then I just kind of got out of pop punk pretty quick. I went from like Blink and MXPX and stuff like that to NoFX to like US Bombs, One Man Army, and Rancid very, very quickly. And so I was into that like UK 82, like 77 style, oi, street punk. I was into all that stuff very quick. It took me just a couple of years before I wasn't even listening to Blink for like primarily. Like that's why I didn't listen to really early Alkaline Trio. I didn't care about it. I had to like rediscover pop punk to get into Alkaline Trio. I was 20 years old when I got, or 22 years old when I got back into that stuff. But I don't really think it should matter so much when you got into it, just so much as you did. And I don't know. I just wanted to compare the two bands a little bit because I think they have a lot of similarities. At least for the time being, they were both trios. They both had early influence in pop punk, and they both went very, very different directions, which I think is a similarity. They both went their own way, and you can hear a lot of NoFX and MXPX songs. You can hear a lot of pop music in Blink-182 songs, and I think that's where they started to veer off. Is that you had guys that probably were just like lifelong punk rock dudes versus guys that were like California dudes that liked punk rock to a degree. And so their tastes varied quite a bit more. I don't know a single punk rocker that only listens to punk, but there are punk dudes, and then there are guys that kind of like some punk that play music, and you could tell, and you're like, oh, these guys like punk a little bit, and you're like, yeah, like Foo Fighters, clearly they like punk rock, but their music goes from like a really hard music to a lighter sound. And that's no diss on any of them. It's just an observation.
Yeah, and I think MXPX, they're like, even in their later years, they went into more of a rock sound whenever they would veer away from punk, and that's where they kept it.
Right.
Whereas a band like Blink went into things like hip hop and other forms of like 80s pop and synth and that kind of stuff to filter their stuff through. I think Mike has a collection of really good songs that you can translate into quite a bit of genres too. If like the way that he does his acoustic sets, those don't necessarily sound like pop punk songs when you hear them. And not every pop punk band, a lot of their set could be a very acoustic set. I think some of the strength in the MXPX songs isn't the fact that they are generically good songs. When they're pretty stripped down to those couple of core elements.
I think that the basis of MXPX is also a little different than a bass, or I said the basis, I meant the bass. The bass of MXPX is also a little different than the bass of Blink-182, because the bass of MXPX, you get it back to like a Ramones sound. Like they sound Blink, you
Yeah.
didn't. They had to go make a Ramones style song for them to sound like the Ramones. MXPX is not that. They can sound like the Ramones a lot without having to try.
Yeah. No, if Blink-182 is more like I think much more derivative of NoFX, whereas
Really?
I think MXPX is more trying to follow in and come to the same conclusions that NoFX is. If that makes
That's a good. No, I understand that. I agree with
many.
that.
So yeah. I mean,
yeah.
not to say that they're not all kind of, and at the end of the day, they're all influenced by Bad Religion and all
Yeah,
this stuff.
right,
and
right,
that's and that's what we're really talking. I do think like. Again, it's funny because like now, like again this weekend, you associate MXPX and NoFX, and they've done a lot of stuff on Fat over the years. MXPX has, so you sort of associate them.
Wait,
over
they
there.
have? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have a few.
Like EPs
they have a few vinyls out. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah, they have a few. They're considered like in the Fat family.
That's dope. Oh man, I like
more
that.
broad
That makes me happy,
perspective.
man.
And that's a lot of the MXPX music. They've done a lot with labels that way. Because they've had their own label journey where they've been on the big punk labels. They've been on a major. They've done the whole thing. They've always kind of kept putting out albums with these. Comps or 7-inches or whatever with the punk labels, and it's kind of kept them for a band that wasn't always like having less to do with their sound than a whole lot of other stuff. A band that was or wasn't always accepted within punk rock,
There's a lot
has been a part of a lot of punk labels, a lot more so than a lot of these other bands that really haven't over the years.
I mean, regardless of my comments last week, I do think a lot of people are like snobbery towards MXPX when they don't really know. It's very clear that they have always liked this stuff. Go back and watch their music videos from the 90s. They may have some stuff that you might consider cheesy, some like scatting in a song and like da-da-da, this and that. And they did a lot of 50s style stuff, but back then everybody was doing that. But go look at their videos. There's evidence in there that those guys knew what they were doing, knew what they were talking about.
It's also funny the way we perceive it because like a lot of bands did those same couple of things, but bands like Blink and bands like MXPX were like a little bit younger and a little bit more, I think, like what you would put like in a movie if you were making a movie about like a punk. They just looked a little more Hollywood versus like bands like Lagwagon and No Use for a Name that were kind of doing the same exact things in their videos, but just looked like a little bit older men when they were doing it. So the cheesiness was more played for like an immaturity and like a punk rocky thing, whereas people sort of rejected this stuff. And it's funny that it's it's these little kind of things, but also. These little things grow and they have different little similarities that they grow together with. So the categorizing is not always a bad thing, but it's not always a marker of something if something is or isn't good. I will say my perception of the band is actually slightly different, or actually kind of similar to yours in that like I got into them in 2000 specifically. You remember did you ever have the Box, that music request channel around your spot?
No.
Yeah, so this is one of these things that it was on regular over, the antenna TV, where you would play like 30 seconds of a music video and to give a little like phone number underneath, and eventually I guess you could call and actually request a song and pay $1 or whatever, and they would play the full video. For whatever reason, kind of. Yeah, MXPX got on that with Responsibility.
That's awesome.
I knew that looked like
punk. Like, I didn't even know that was their song until yesterday.
Yeah, oh, really? That's funny. Yeah, for me, that looked like Blink-182. That looked like Green Day. That looked like the other stuff I was kind of getting into. So I thought, okay, I kind of like them. And then they, like, as I got more into just whatever, hearing like the Warped Tour stuff and all that, like that band kept kind of coming up. Going back and looking at it, though, so like my time of really receiving them was 2000 through like 2005. I like a lot of their catalog all around that time. I like a lot of their 90s stuff, and I like a lot of their, I would say, like, late 2000s, like from like 2005 to current day. The last couple albums, I think, are very good.
Okay.
For whatever reason, even though they have a lot of good songs that time period, I don't like them as much in that middle period where they were probably the most, like, commercially successful in the early 2000s. Like what else?
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So the Ever Passing Moment, let me think of these ones in the mid 2000s. Let me pull up their discography. Whereas like Life in General, I love so many of those songs. Even like, okay, so Slowly Going to the Way of the Buffalo, I still like, but not as much as like Life in General. And then
I'm flip flopped.
The Ever Passing Moment, which again,
when was the last time that you listened to Slowly Going to Bed the Buffalo? Did you listen to it this week?
No, I just kind of cherry picked some of the songs.
You should go listen to Life in General in its entirety, and then go listen to Slowly Going Away to Buffalo in its entirety, and just kind of see if you still have those same opinions.
And it may be. And then like, okay, so the really thing I'm trying to illustrate this with is like the album I would have found it at 2000's Ever Passing Moment, which is probably their biggest record. You know, it's produced by
Oh,
Jerry
really?
Finn, who we always talk about
Interesting.
on A&M record. Like it's a huge record. It's where Responsibility was on. It's where My Life Story was on. I to me, they're just not the earlier stuff was just better. Like I don't think it's a stylistic thing or any big issues in or around it. I just think it wasn't as good. Same thing with Before Everything and After in 2003. I didn't think was quite as good, and it was very very popular. Very very big album that led to a lot of big tours. It wasn't until really I would say maybe in '05 with Panic. And maybe it's because they came back to Side One Dummy, and maybe it was just different people they were working with
Right.
back then or whatever. But I felt at that point they were one of the few bands that when they never went away from pop punk nowhere near as much as the other bands did. They just started also making some of their more seriously ballad songs a little bit bigger in these later albums, and I think that really fit them well. And they toned down some of the pop punk, so the pop punk didn't feel like as much filler as I thought it did in some of those middle albums. And that's what I think a little bit with those middle 2000s really major label albums that like maybe they were trying to write too many pop punk songs, or I just haven't given it like doesn't hold up next to something like Enema of the State or Take Off Your Pants, so it doesn't seem as good. And obviously it's not like that similar to like a NoFX or a Rancid, so it doesn't hold up there. So for me, I really like their early stuff. They're sort of like where they're almost like you could tell they were too wet behind the ears, that early stuff where it sounds like they're songs of middle schoolers writing songs, or I like
Right.
them as like middle-aged men. Their whole prime I like, but not as much. I would put it in my third tier if I was ranking my
Yeah.
sort of rough eras of the band, you know.
I think I agree with most of that. Most of it, not all of it, most of it.
Mm.
My issue with them has always been their lyrics.
Mhm.
Because while I appreciate their lyrics, there's a time where I just don't like them. Does that make sense? I'm like, they're too cheesy. They don't have enough anger. There's not enough cursing. Like, I know it's
Yeah.
stupid, but it's like, there's not like when you're pissed off, you don't want to listen to MXPX, dude. Like, go listen to The Unseen or something, or No Effects.
No, and that's why I think like I like their later stuff because it is more like they're one of the first bands I've ever like liked as like dad pop punk. Because maybe because they didn't start out as that, like you like
Right.
you like a lot of these bands that I think kind of start out as sort of that, and with a little
Like
more of that,
Nothington type stuff.
yeah. And I don't.
Yeah, I love that shit.
I more like when my bands go into that mode a little bit is more of kind of how I like to, and I think they're very good at that. So it's like those songs like that are more of that sort of like I always say that front porch punk kind of sound of a song don't need as much anger and vinegar in them like you're saying. So I think I like them lyrically on those parts as well. Whereas again with the pop punkier stuff, I don't mind it when it's so innocent as that
Right.
early stuff. But when it's that middle record stuff, comparing that to like Enema of the State, it's just not as fun. Like it just simply isn't.
I like. Okay, so Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo is probably like a top 5 pop punk album to me now that I've revisited it.
Oh, cool.
Maybe top 10, but definitely
Mm-hmm.
like it's that good for me. Like it. I forgot how much I like that album because when I first heard it, I didn't care for it, and for the stupidest reason, man. You know, when you're young, you'll get something, and the dumbest reasons will set you off.
Sure.
I didn't like it because I didn't like the cover. I was like, "This is a stupid cover," and
It,
I was
it, is,
like,
it is a stupid cover, by the way. That's a correct take. Like all their covers are really fun, but that one you would assume that was their album that they put the dad rock songs on, right?
Right.
Like, come
No,
on.
for real. It's such a good record too, man. And when I was young, I just didn't give it the time of day because I was like, this is a stupid looking cover art. But yeah, going back on it, it's easily my favorite MXPX record. Like, there's not even a question. And then my second favorite one is their newest record. That album is amazing, dude. Like every time I go back to it, I'm like shocked at how good it is. Like it's like the perfect progression for this band. They got at the perfect point in their life, and they dropped it at the perfect time for me. And it's a subjective statement, so I don't think there's any right or wrong answer or response to that. But it's amazing. It's such a great record, man. And the 3 songs that I have highlighted off of it are so good that I put them on like a personal playlist, which is rare.
Yeah, what are they? I want to hear this.
What I Tell Myself,
Okay.
Undone, and Stay Up All Night, I believe, is their single off that one, and that was a really good song.
Mm-hmm. I will say
those
this.
are my 3 favorite off the album, but there's a couple other ones.
Let me jump
Ready
in
to
real
Rage
quick
is also very good. Sorry.
on that. So I've seen MXPX in my life only at festivals. Basically, I've seen them at a Warped Tour. I saw them at When We Were Young, and I saw them this weekend at Punk and Drublic. I've never seen them like at a club. So I've never seen like the full on set. I will say though, right now, having seen them twice in less than a year at major shows,
Okay.
The one criticism I have of their set is it's not enough of like a festival set because it is a straight up tour set. But the flip side of that is that means half of the songs come off of that album. And all like every single one of those songs translates well live. Now, the crowd isn't as into them at these festivals because they just simply are as they're just newer. Eventually, they will get the crowd pops a lot more for basically everything else. With that said, the way those songs can, especially they open up, like the opening part of the set is a lot of those songs that they're still working on. So they're like, shout out to them for very much still being a real band. I just want to interject that from the first-hand experience.
It's wild how good that record is, man. It really did blow my mind when I listened to it like the first time. I thought, I don't know if I'm going to like it this much in the future, but boy, I tell you on the first listen, this is great. And then it kept getting better and better. I just want to, give them credit for that. I think that's amazing.
What other songs did you have on there? As I cut you off to tell my story.
From that album?
Yeah.
Ready to Rage is probably the next one that I like a lot. But there isn't a song on there that I don't like. It was hard to pick just a few. I wanted to whittle it down, but I got a bunch of songs off of Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo, and I got a fair amount off of Life in General. I will say that probably one of their biggest songs I absolutely can't stand. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No, I'm so curious because
Chick Magnet. I hate that song.
Fair. I don't have it on my list. I like it because it's a big song by them, and even it's purposely annoying as they told when they wrote it because Tom kept breaking guitar strings. So it was sort of this bass walk thing that Mike would do to sort of entertain the crowd as Tom would change out his string. That's sort of the origin song. I remember on Saturday hoping they wouldn't play it because it's such a long song in a limited set that seemed like it was going to get rained out. I don't mind the song. I just didn't want them to play it particularly this past Saturday.
It's funny because I kind of agree with that. Like, it is a long song, but I just never really liked it. Even when it first came out, I thought, that's kind of interesting. And then I just was like, nah. I just was a little angrier than that song was. But I can appreciate the song. I get it. And I do think I bet it's fun live. You know what I'm saying? It's probably a fun song live because there's a lot of bands that have songs that I don't really care for, but when they play them live, I get into it. And maybe it's just because it's like when you're there, you're kind of in the moment. Sure. So I'm speaking strictly off of listening to it in the car or something. It won't be on my playlists. But what is your favorite album by them? Is it Life in General?
So it would actually be, and this is probably going to be a hot take, as a total album, it's probably the self-titled album in 2018. The way you liked this most recent one, I think I liked that one in 2018. Newsflash here. I haven't heard that one. That's one that I didn't even get to listen to this week. So I will put that on the priority list and I'll come up with a few songs off of that. Because I have a best of MXPX playlist. It's like 24 songs that I put on Spotify. I'll put that in the description. I made one that was 15 songs long. And the ones I selected off of that album are the ones that are basically hits. But that also plays into it because I think MXPX, to their credit, has done a really good job of staying like really relevant on like social media and YouTube. And like the last album, there's a video for every song. So these songs I'll point out all have videos. But Let's Ride, Moments.
Oh, that's
like
on
this.
my list. That's a good song.
Well, Let's Ride too. I want to say. So when you're in Colorado in the Rockies and it's raining and they're playing that song to close out the set. Pretty awesome experience, let me tell you. So the subject matter of the song is happening right in front of you.
Right. Hey, move your mic back a few inches.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
And then
Boom, perfect.
And really most of that album is a slower tempo album. But also the one that caught my attention and got me back into MXPX was the song Friday Tonight. When I heard that was a kind of a mixture of it would be like a fun sort of silly song that they would have done way back, but with very modern and current sensibilities. So I think that's my thing that I realized with them. I don't know. It's either that album or it's Life in General, or it's just my Spotify playlist of them. It's their live set. I don't know if I have an album with them. Like it's a weird. I love them a lot. As I told you back when we were young, like there was like historical cool stuff that was happening when their set was happening on, but I wanted to go see MXPX. At the same time, I don't love every song on every one of their records. There's nothing I really dislike by them. I just really seem to go with like the hits or the big songs with them for whatever reason, or not even that,
I
because
agree with that. I like the hits, dude.
I like a lot of
they
the
make
extra
good
stuff
singles.
too, but the extra stuff, comes to find is on EPs or LPs. So as far as the albums, I just don't have a strong enough, like super strong taste, because it's Life in General or it's the album in 2018, and I really wouldn't say like they're just loaded with all those songs. I kind of like a variety of the entirety of their career, because there's not an era I really don't like of them as well, because
Right.
they don't really have that either.
Well, I mimic you, but I'm just like one record behind. I like
Yeah.
Buffalo and I like the new album, but I like those enough to say that those are my favorite albums by quite a bit. But they have songs on all the records that I like. On Life in General, there's a handful of songs I like off that record quite a bit. I'll go over Poca Nacho in a minute. I'll round this conversation out with
Okay.
Poca Nacho songs in a minute. But I like sometimes you have to ask yourself, Andrea, today is in my way. Sorry, so sorry, and Crystalina are all off Life in General, and those are all songs that I really resonate with. I like those songs a lot.
Oh, those are so nostalgic. All those
Yeah,
titles, like that's just so middle school time period for me. Like, so good.
yeah. That is the only issue with them, is that sometimes I don't want to hear them because I'm like, man, I'm just not in the mood to go back in time like that. But yeah. What are the songs that you like off Life in General?
So I have, and again, and I just have my early section here. I've got obviously Middle Name, Do Your Feet Hurt, which I love, Doing Time, Andrea, and then Move to Bremerton, which might actually be before then. But
No, that's off Life in General.
is that Life in General?
Yeah,
Okay.
man. Move to Bremerton and Do Your Feet Hurt are songs that I just think are very, very overrated. They're good songs. I never understood why they got the recognition they got. That doesn't mean they're not amazing. I never understood it. I like other songs better.
Is Doing Time on Life in General?
I don't know.
Yeah, and you know which song that is, right? That that it ends with the big climax. I went out every Friday night, and I still do, and I'm all right. I went to school
Bro.
and did my time. Anyway, whatever album that was on, that's like up there. If I was doing, if I was ordering this list, that would be a top one or two songs. And
Yeah, it's off Life in General.
okay, so like Life in General is the number one album. That as we're going through this, like this is where most of those songs from this list do come from. I think Life in General pretty safely would be the number one album for me. Now that we're kind of going through it.
Yeah, I've got like 8 songs off of Slowly Going the Way to Buffalo that I had to put on here. So that's how I felt the same way. I was like, it's very obvious which one's my favorite. I have Under Lock and Key. I'm Okay, You're Okay, which
I've got that's a top one that's a top
Yeah.
tier one for me. Yeah,
Cold and All Alone. Party My House, Be There. That song rules, dude.
good one.
The Downfall of Western Civilization. Fist vs. Tact. Self-Serving with a Purpose, and Get With It. Like, that album is so good, bro.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna amend my take. This album goes with the '90s stuff that I'm saying. This doesn't fall
Yeah,
into.
I knew it did. I didn't want to argue about it, but I was like,
But
I
now
don't
I'm thinking
know,
about
man.
it.
Hold on.
No. So it's that cover. It's a stupid cover. That is because
No,
I
dude,
I
that's
think
the
of fun
problem with the
MXPX as the Life in General and all that cartoony stuff.
Yeah.
And that sometimes I think Slowly Going Away to the Buffalo came out like in 2008. Like that's
Dude,
how weird I think
I
of it.
know. And it's like a 2000 record or 99 or something like
Yeah,
that.
in like
It's
96 or 97. Yeah, it's 90s. Yeah, for sure.
was it that long ago? Damn. But yeah, anyways, that album is fantastic, bro. Like and then off the Poca Nacha, man, like these songs aren't all gonna stay on here because there's too many of them. I don't know, man. They might, dude. I've only heard them a few times. I listened to it a few times because I was new to it. But we have songs like Weak, Realize, Unopposed, Ears to Hear, High Standards, Walking By, and One Way Window that all made a very, very distinct impression on me. Mostly, like, there was only two metrics that I really was concerned about while listening to this record that made me put it on the list or not. And that was either the lyrics were just outstanding, but most of the time, the music was just phenomenal on that record. And I was like, I almost wished that they would re-record it, but I also kind of like that it's preserved in this little time capsule of 90s pre-boom pop punk shitty recordings. I like that a little bit.
Yeah, well, and like you contrast that to like a lot of like the stuff that was on like Lookout and stuff like that, and a lot of this stuff with
That's a
the
good point.
lo-fi nature of this stuff, just how good the songwriting was on this, and that stuff's not bad, but this stuff is just really good. Like,
Yeah, I want to shout out
really.
Yuri real quick, dude. That guy's a fucking unit, dude. That guy can play some drums. I never knew he was that good of a drummer until I started listening to this music this week with this purpose, like thinking about the podcast.
Yeah.
That dude can play his little butt off, man. Yeah, that guy's amazing.
Yeah, good dynamic that they seem to have within the band. I think currently Mike is able to make enough money off of basically being Mike, being an MXPX, all the stuff that he does. And,
Right.
And Yuri and Tom, when they're not touring with MXPX, work still at the shipyards there in Washington. So I think,
No shit.
I don't know how the relationship, they've worked there for years, though. That's been their kind of off and on regular job. And I think that's probably how they're still able to probably just, play like these big festivals. Them and the Ataris have been playing these like big major, like, where you're setting up fewer dates but making bigger dates out of like club shows. Seems to be like what they're kind of doing, and I think it's kind of working because they all seem to be selling out, and probably a little less overhead without a full tour.
That's awesome, dude. Good for them, man. I hope they knock it out the park, man. I'm happy to see the success. I'm so pleased with their new album, man. I just want to give them the flowers that they deserve right now, because so many of these bands, we look at this stuff in hindsight, but we don't look at it while it's happening. As a perfect example, like the old Berkeley stuff, the Gilman stuff, I used to like that stuff, but I didn't love it. Like I wasn't there. So I liked Operation Ivy and I liked Grimple, but you know what band I didn't listen to until like I was almost 30 was Filth. Like that's a band that I didn't even like. All my friends had their t-shirts. I just thought they sounded. I misunderstood their sound, and I thought based on their art and their imagery that they were going to sound more like Osrotten or something, which isn't a bad thing. I just wasn't. I was looking for a little bit more melody than that. I wanted a little more like rock and roll with my music, right? So I went like the Women Army, dude. If you go listen to Filth, they got plenty of melody, but the guys' vocals are amazing. They sound like. You like Filth at all?
Yeah.
I've recently like rediscovered this band, and I've forgotten how much I love them. But they're a band that I didn't get into until later, and I think we need to recognize this stuff like while it's happening a little bit more. And this new MXPX album, it's a weird comparison to make, but the new MXPX album is
but that's
really good.
That's why it's good. Like when I'm seeing them and I'm sort of complaining that they keep playing the new stuff. Well, you know what they're doing? They're putting that new stuff in canon. So like in 2005 when they played Heard That Sound for the first time, I probably complained back then too, and now they play it and everyone goes crazy for it. So it's
I like that you recognize that though.
They're still out there. They're still out there working it, and I don't mind it as long as the new album doesn't suck. I don't mind you playing the new songs from it. That's kind of my thing, because as long as if it's still gonna have fun, we're gonna have a little circle pit or just have some fun. Like hey, that's what we're ultimately here for. So who cares?
Let's see. All right, sorry. Yeah, man. I don't have a whole lot else to talk about with MXPX.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the few bands I've never seen live.
Oh yeah, and
I've never seen MXPX. You know what? Did they play the Warped Tour one year? I might have seen them on the Warped Tour.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever been to like an MXPX show, which sucks.
I haven't either though. That's funny. I told you I've only seen them at Warped Tour when we were young and punk and drum. I've only seen them on these kind of festival stages. I didn't know that.
That's cool. That's good that you got to see them though.
Myself,
I want to listen to that 2018 album today. I think I'm going to give that a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think you might like. It's very dad rock. It's very much dad pop punk kind of, and they have a little bit of that.
What is it? I always called it like beard, like flannel punk or something.
Yeah,
yeah. The guys have a gruffer voice. Like Nothington is like probably my favorite band from that genre.
Yeah, I would say I always say like front porch punk is how I put it. Just sort of like.
I mean, they all sound about right.
Kind of like what Bouncing Souls have sort of turned into a little bit in their later years.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's not exactly, but it's sort of like if you would put all that stuff on the same playlist, basically. Yeah, is how I would put that. So, so like on the new album, there's a few songs that are a little bit more of that.
And shit.
Yeah. It would fit very well with all of that stuff, I would say. So if you're kind of into that, I think that works, and you already sort of naturally like MXPX, so
right.
I think that would kind of work for you.
What are some okay, so people that are watching this that maybe are a little younger than us, what are some other pop punk bands that you would recommend to somebody that said that they liked MXPX? I would go into the Fat Records catalog.
Yeah, shoot.
I would do Lagwagon. I would say Lagwagon for sure.
Yeah, those bands would be good. Those melodic the poppier fat bands would be a good analog. So
from Austin, Texas, that Georgie Porgy put on a live stream yesterday. Dynamite Boy. I hadn't thought about them in a long time. Have you heard Dynamite Boy?
No, I was thinking of Diesel Boy. That's a different band.
No, dude. I don't think it was Diesel Boy. Hold on. I think it's Dynamite Boy.
That's a different band. Yeah, no, you're good. You're right.
Okay, so you would probably like them. Quite a bit actually. Yeah, they got some good music, man, but they're from Texas. I would say like 88 Fingers Louie is another band that just re-released some vinyl, like some represses that need to get some attention right now. I would tell them to listen to old Alkaline Trio, because all these younger kids don't listen to this stuff, man, so they don't really know. But if you're watching this show from my channel and you want to listen to some bands that you found out you like MXPX, go check out Lagwagon, 88 Fingers Louie, Dynamite Boy. I even would say like the Ataris would probably be a good band, because they were like similar in like aesthetic.
And they're like best friends to this day.
Oh, really?
Mike and so like they're like San Dimas is one of the biggest Atari songs. It just happens to be Mike's wife's favorite song.
Nice.
So MXPX has a version of it. It's exactly that. It's if you're into the pop punk that didn't make it so big.
Right.
If you want to know what underground pop punk in the 90s kind of sounded like, I think that's like the perfect spot to sort of to camp out in. It gives you a flavor of everything. I would say too, if you want to like, if Mike Ness and Social Distortion was made for kids, it would probably sound like MXPX too, because it does sort of have that sort of rock thread, I think, to it. It's just like, like obviously there's the whole Mike Ness-ness of it and all of his backstory and all that. That's not the vibe that you're going to get with MXPX at all. But I think musically, I think there are a lot of like tonal similarities just in the way that they construct it. I think Mike even has some country stuff he did solo later on that where you could see a little bit of the Mike Herrera did to see the influence of Mike Ness. I think a lot of that is
pretty
on display.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Also, I would say if you, I love their cover albums. I always have since I was a kid. I've loved like they do Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. MXPX version way better than the Bryan Adams version.
Dude, I mean, I like Bryan Adams quite a bit though.
No, there's nothing, no shade on Bryan Adams. And Summer of '69 is a great song, but think about what a good general rock song that is, and put a little pop punk flavor to it and have Mike singing it.
Covers of like rock songs. They're like it just infinitely
it's just better like versions it accentuates. This weekend Lagwagon did their Brown Eyed Girl, and it's great because like even if no one knew any Lagwagon songs, everyone knows Brown Eyed Girl, and and the pop punk versions basically have the same like tempo and stuff. So it's just like on coffee. That's like the difference.
Oh, you know who else people should listen to if they're checking out MXPX and liking it? It's not quite the same, but I feel like it would be like more of like a snotty version of it. Would be Teenage Bottle Rocket, man. Go listen to them in the Lillingtons.
Yeah, like so. Think of it like this: when you're a good kid in 5th or 6th grade, you are MXPX, and then you become like a crappy 9th grader, and you turn into Teenage Bottle Rocket. That is exactly
me. That happened to me. I was that good kid. Actually, I'd say like 3rd grade. 5th grade, I was carving "fuck you" in my desk with a knife and getting caught. So I just had Sean Mutaki from Vegan Reich and Violent Disorder on the show. That was a legendary conversation, man. That dude's a freaking literal living legend. This channel is really turning into something, man, and I appreciate everybody's time, support. Rob, I appreciate your help with this channel, because the stuff that you give to us is it's a very important part of it's the bedrock of the channel, man. I wouldn't have gotten to the other stuff with it if it wasn't for what me and you do together. So thank you, man. I just want to keep saying that to you, bro, because it matters to me, and I have a lot of fun doing this with you. Probably more fun than anything else I do. So we got a lot of good stuff coming, man. I started working on the outline of the next mini doc. I just dropped the Cold Oi video. I don't know if you've seen it yet, bro, but it's doing very well. It's up about 3,000 views in its first 2 days. So, it's weird saying those numbers because that just seems so unlikely for somebody like me to have a video.
It doesn't seem like tangible numbers, right? They just seem like
not in 2 days, man. But we're working on Women in Punk Volume 1 and 2, and that's probably going to be a pretty big video series, I would think, because that's going to hit a lot of different demographics that are going to want to hear it and listen to it and watch it. And I'm going to do my due diligence, but I would also like to try to keep them under 30 minutes a piece. I just don't see any reason to make a 1 hour video and then make a second part that's 1 hour. But yeah, what do you got? Anything going on that you're going to try to do on your channel? Or are you still just doing the podcast?
So mostly doing the podcast. I was vague about my stories about this weekend intentionally because I might put something together on that, just as sort of like a video vlog.
If you do that, let me know. Send me like a thumbnail and a link, and I'll bust out like a
yeah.
community post about it, and just I forget that I can do that and help you out. Probably just send a few people your way because people ask about you all the time. So
Yeah, and then the other thing I'm just thinking about is and it's part of it's recency bias is obviously like NoFX is coming to the end. So and I that's the primary thing I talk about on my channel has been NoFX. I kind of
right.
I have a lot to say on that, and I think if there's any time for me to get those things out, it's in the next couple of months. That's where my headspace is at, and I want to do something. You got Bad Religion's Stranger Than Fiction hitting 30 years this year, and a lot of like that album being a major label album and all that. So those are like the two things I just sort of have in my head. I don't know what comes out of that.
I think I have Stranger Than Fiction written down on our list of stuff
Yeah,
to do this
it's
year.
in like August, I think. So I'm sure we're gonna do an episode.
Yeah, we're doing that soon, actually.
And that's kind of yeah.
Oh,
those are
dude. Let's do that next week.
That's perfect. That I need to get kind of kickstarted on where I'm headed with that. So perfect. Those are the two things in my orbit right now. So
let's do Stranger Than Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then, let's see. Yo, we're going to be able to do Poca Nacha this year in October. I can't wait to do a deep dive on that.
Do a deep dive on that.
Yeah, bro. That'll be awesome, man. And then let's see. Give me 1 second. I'll come up with something else we can do. Oh. Bad Religion, and let's do RKL, Riches to Rags.
Do next week as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it'd be nice to have two albums covered again. We haven't done that in a few weeks.
That's a good pairing too. I think we can.
That's what I was thinking, is that it would go kind of well together.
They're kind of bookends of different eras.
Right.
So
And
I
since
think
we
that's
talked
good.
a bunch of NoFX recently, it'd be kind of cool to throw Bad Religion and RKL in there, since
So how people
those
paint the
two
picture.
things
Yeah.
fucked, and then we got NoFX.
And then like, yeah, that's
Bro,
how we got there.
RKL is one that's hard for me to listen to, man. I don't really dig it that much. It's going to be an interesting conversation.
You're gonna have to take
doing a deeper dive is going to be good for me, though.
No, it's good medicine though. Like how you remember I said you didn't really like Jawbreaker, but it's like you kind of had to get through it to understand all this other stuff. So it's
man. I thought I was going to like them a lot more than I did. It was weird, man. It was very, very weird. I was expecting to really enjoy Jawbreaker, and I just didn't. I don't know. In a few minutes, dude, I get to jump on my old channel, Horror Hangout. I got to come back, dude. And today's the perfect day because they just dropped a Terrifier 3 trailer. And a lot of the people on Punk Rock Review have been asking me, like, hey, I heard you had a horror channel. And I'm like, yeah, it's, dormant. I don't really do anything on it. And, you should. I've gotten enough people that ask me that where I was like, all right, I'll do probably like 1 or 2 live streams a week, and then maybe like a review here and there. It's not going to be anything like super, super extravagant, but
just make it manageable for yourself to
right.
do
Right.
Yeah.
The live streams are pretty easy to do. If I can grow it doing some live streams, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
but
interesting. That's
so
exciting.
if you're a fan of horror movies, check out Horror Hangout. It'll be back in action starting
October.
Today.
I'll be hitting up your channel.
That's kind of what I was thinking. It's like we're coming up on the fall. It's kind of a good time to start it up.
Sort of soft launch. Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
Awesome, dude. What do you got going on today? I know you got to leave here in a few minutes.
Just actually, my son got the new college football video game, so I'm gonna have to beat him over and over again, which is not true because he's been playing for like 2 days straight, so he's gonna kill me. But that's about it. Yeah.
Nice, dude. Hell yeah. Well, I look forward to talking about Bad Religion. Are we going to start? We're going to go back to Tuesday night.
Most likely, unless something changes. But I'll text you.
Keep me up to date. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little while, talking about MXPX, dude. I think they're a very underrated band, honestly. The more I listen to them, the more I realize that they're incredibly talented musicians. And while I kind of look at them as just another band in my list of bands I love, I think they have enough going that's unique that people that are just in punk music, or that people that just love guitar-driven music, should check them out. Listen to them. Check out Yuri's drums. They're kind of amazing, honestly. So yeah, man, MXPX, dude, top tier band.